Art Del Cueto is a 21-year veteran of the U.S. Border Patrol. Deron Smallcomb is an immigration attorney. I want to start with you, Art, because you are oftentimes at the southern border, perhaps in Mexico. Have you seen these billboards across the border from, say, Arizona, where you are?
So I have not seen them in Arizona, but I can tell you, I grew up on the border, and I've been here my entire life, and it's not a surprise to me that they're being so blatant now and they're putting out these billboards. But this has been happening for years. Again, I grew up right on the border, and it was constant that there was individuals that would come into the U.S. just to have their children in the United States. And it stretches further than what people may think. A lot of it causes issues in our school system. So people need to understand some of these state laws don't get enforced. So many times these families that would have their children in the U.S., they would have them that way when they're of school age. They can bring them back and forth, and they would come across the border, and they still do in the hundreds. They come back and forth so they can get free education in the United States, and they get that because of their birthright. So it's not just about a lot of these other benefits that people may think. A lot of it has to do with things that people don't even think about, like going to school. So it doesn't surprise me that they're advertising it, because it's been happening for years, especially on the border cities.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, we talk about crossing the southern border. I also wonder for international travelers or even folks in China who would somehow want to wish harm on the United States, right, coming over, delivering the baby, and then you've got, an American citizen. Deron, though, let's talk about these billboards in particular. Apparently, the hospital got rid of them. Mission Regional Medical Center spokesperson providing a statement in response to the Texas governor's call for an HHS investigation, writing this, quote, Mission Regional Hospital does not support or facilitate any unlawful activity and is committed to complying with all applicable federal and state laws and regulations. But, we've heard Republicans really raise the red flag about this, including Congressman Chip Roy of Texas. He says these hospitals are selling American citizenship. How do you see it?
Well, I agree. As an American citizen, I could say that citizenship is not a product with a price tag on a billboard. And when a hospital is marketing C-sections in Mexico with a U.S. phone number, that's not healthcare outreach. That's a citizenship business, and investigating it is exactly right. But to be precise, visa fraud, lying about your purpose for travel to the United States, is already illegal. Consular officers and CBP already have the authority to deny entry. So we do have laws on the books that we should be enforcing stronger. Rather than considering the 14th Amendment to shut down these birth tourism operators. It's on a pretty small scale. At most, we're looking maybe at tens of thousands per year, which is a lot, but compared to the tens of millions that came in during the Biden administration, right, we're looking at ratios that don't necessarily deserve the focus of our attention in immigration.
Yeah, I want to get two thoughts here from you, Deron. So I'll stay with you since you've got the legal background. Hospital, they pulled the billboards for potential, what they call unintended misunderstanding. Now, two-part question here. One, is the hospital potentially liable for this from a legal perspective? And then secondly, do you think that the Supreme Court will actually rehear that case, given that there is now proof that this is happening?
The hospital's advertisements are pretty narrowly construed, that they're probably not going to get in trouble, but nobody wants the national spotlight on their organization, and it certainly is. So that's going to be an issue. With regards to the Supreme Court, I've read the opinion. 5 justices grounded this in the Constitution itself, and you can't overrule the 14th Amendment with a statute or redefining a statute, which would be subject to the jurisdiction of. And if you try to do something like that, like Speaker Johnson and other congressmen are promoting right now, it's not going to go anywhere. It makes for a great press release, but absent a constitutional amendment, nothing is going to change on this particular issue. If you ask me, and I've been in this for a long time, and I see it from all sides, Congress has real immigration power right now that it refuses to use to fix the courts, to fund the courts and fix the backlog and modernize legal immigration. That's where a legislative fix would actually stick.
Yeah, interesting. That would require Congress to actually get something passed by working together, something we've called for, obviously, for years. And I understand, as someone who's been pregnant and, unable to travel at a certain point in the pregnancy. I mean, you're not supposed to fly at a certain point along. Obviously, crossing the border would be a different situation. But something totally that hasn't really been brought up is surrogacy, where you wouldn't have to travel at all, right? Art, even in the past, I was looking at CNN, they had a report on this several years ago where they were looking into Chinese families hiring American surrogates to carry their children. Obviously, under the law, these babies would be born U.S. citizens, and no one has to do any air traveling. What do you think about this? And so should the Supreme Court maybe, somehow evaluate something like this? Maybe it would be a totally different case.
Well, I think that one of the big points that we have just made is we need to start enforcing some of the laws that are on the books as well. And I think a lot of that would include the intent of those individuals that are crossing into the U.S. and what their real intent is, and if they're lying about it, obviously deny them the entry. However, that's where the big problem seems to be, is the enforcement of the law. And we're seeing it across the country in areas where the law is being enforced. There's so many people that come out in droves to protest because of such laws that get enforced. But again, at the ports of entries, we have individuals that have continuously crossed into the U.S. for years, and their intent has been very well known. And they'll let you know. They're not ashamed to tell you, I'm coming into the U.S., and they enter legally. Remember that. They enter legally through the ports and say, I'm coming to the U.S., I'm going to have a child in the United States. We want them to be born in the United States. We want a United States citizen. And those people are not being denied. So, that is a very good point. We need to start enforcing a lot of these laws on the books. But every time that they do get enforced, especially with immigration lately, you end up having all these individuals that come out in droves and they put these obstacles against law enforcement and against this administration for enforcing the law.
Yeah, great point. These billboards went up in 2021. We know that surge of illegal immigration happening in the Biden administration over that 4-year window. Clearly, this hospital either trying to make a profit off it, but we'll wait to see where these investigations go. Art Del Cueto, Deron Smallcomb, thank you both for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.